Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into some really potent source material excerpts from a dialogue called Agency, Decisions, and the Pursuit of Success. And this isn't, your typical theoretical self-help stuff. It's more like a practical look at the actual mechanics of high performance. Our mission here is to pull out the concrete psychological strategies, the ones that really drive personal agency, that ability to act, to make choices and stick to them. And we'll uncover this often counterintuitive role that insecurity seems to play in achieving real success. Think of it as a shortcut to understanding what fuels sustained excellence. Okay, so let's unpack this. The sources, they dive right into something pretty uncomfortable. Taking action, having agency, it demands that you confront what the material calls your insecurities head on. It's like the first gate you have to go through. But thankfully, it also gives us two really big external forces, things that if you internalize them, kind of eliminate the excuses for just staying put.
Yeah, and these aren't just feel-good ideas. They're presented as logical constraints that almost force you into motion. The first one is totally non-negotiable. It's simply the finite nature of life. Your time is limited. And the sources stress this point. It's not meant to be depressing. It's meant to be clarifying. It sets the stakes, right? Creates a necessary urgency.
Right, urgency. And the second motivator connects directly to that, I think. For a lot of us, it's maybe the key that unlocks the first one. It's the idea that eventually other people's opinions become completely irrelevant. Absolutely irrelevant. We spend so much energy worrying about judgment, fear of criticism, what people might think.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is how these two concepts work together. It's like a system against inaction. When you really internalize that opinions become irrelevant over time, you kind of neutralize the social handcuffs that hold so many people back. Think about some maybe low-stakes decision you put off, maybe for weeks.
Yeah.
Because you were waiting for someone else to approve or worried what one person might say.
Oh, definitely. Happens all the time.
Well, the argument here is, in the long run, that person's opinion, it's dust. So why would you give that temporary worry control over your very finite time?
That reframing is, wow, it's incredibly powerful when you put it like that. It totally changes how you view the cost of failure, too. Failure stops being this permanent social stain and just becomes, data, information.
Precisely.
It frees you up because, like the material says, if your time is limited, then every single moment you spend paralyzed by what someone else thinks is like a double waste. You waste the time and you waste the energy.
You got it. So using these two levers, finite time and irrelevant opinions, they act as tools. They basically dismantle the two biggest external excuses for not acting. You can't hide behind having infinite time, and you can't hide behind what other people might think. And that's the foundation for building real agency. It forces you towards self-reliance and immediate commitment.
Okay, that sets the stage perfectly for the next big idea then. If we've cleared away the excuses, how do we actually sustain that action? How do we keep growing? And this is where the dialogue gets quite specific and, frankly, pretty demanding. They use this really clear analogy, personal development. You have to treat it exactly like building a muscle, which means, occasional bursts of effort, don't cut it, not at all. It needs consistent, structured, hard work, and critically, you need resistance. You have to push against something hard. To build capacity, you actually have to break down what's already there through, strenuous effort.
Right, and this is where the psychological engine behind all that effort gets really, really interesting. We often assume that the fuel for high performance comes from a purely positive place, right? Visualizing success, big dreams, pure ambition.
Yeah, the usual narrative.
But the sources suggest something different. Often, the driver for that consistent, hard, strenuous work, it's actually rooted in a fear of insufficiency, not just pure positive desire.
Wow, okay. That feels like it clashes directly with a lot of the positive thinking stuff we hear, doesn't it? Focus on abundance, manifest your goals. But this is saying the underlying motivation is almost defensive, like trying to avoid being inadequate.
And that's the nuance the sources really dig into. It's fascinating. While maybe pure ambition chasing the dream gets you started, the argument is that the sustained, sometimes painful effort needed to treat yourself like a muscle that needs a stronger, more immediate driver. And that fear of insufficiency, the fear of not being ready, not having the capacity when you need it, or failing when it really counts, that turns out to be a much more reliable engine for demanding that consistency from yourself.
But I have to push back a little there, maybe playing devil's advocate for someone listening. Isn't relying on fear just, a recipe for constant anxiety?
Yeah.
Or burnout? Or just being paralyzed by self-criticism. I mean, if I'm always running from this shadow of inadequacy, when do I ever actually feel successful? Or even just, okay.
That's a really important question. And the sources are clear. They aren't advocating for paralysis, not at all. It's about channeling that energy. The fear of insufficiency becomes the power source for the daily resistance training, if you will.
Mm.
It's about recognizing an uncomfortable truth. If you don't do the hard work today, you probably will be insufficient tomorrow when a real challenge shows up. So it's less about self-criticism and more about almost existential responsibility.
Yeah.
The effort itself becomes the antidote to the fear. You're actively building the very capacity that prevents the outcome you're afraid of. And that motivation is incredibly durable because the stakes feel personal and immediate every single day.
I see the distinction now. The fear isn't supposed to stop you. It's supposed to drive the preparation. It becomes a tool for discipline, not just the source of background stress. Okay, so if we accept this engine, this effort driven by wanting capacity and avoiding inadequacy, how does that play out in day-to-day execution? This brings us to decision-making. And the conversation makes a really vital connection here. All that energy required for the constant fear-driven effort, it needs to be protected. So the sources really hammer this point. You need quick, committed decision-making. And the biggest benefit isn't just about being efficient. It's about avoiding what the dialogue calls the heavy burden of unmade choices.
Yes, this brings us straight back to concepts like cognitive load. It's very practical. Think of your mind like a computer processor with limited RAM, right? Every unmade choice is like having another browser tab open in the background. Each one is running, constantly consuming mental resources, draining your battery, slowing down everything else you're trying to do. That's the heavy burden. It's the mental clutter. It's that constant low-level hum of anxiety from having all these possibilities and their risks just hanging there, unresolved.
Right. I feel that.
So the sources are really clear. To maintain that high performance, to protect the energy you need for your personal development muscle, you have to commit quickly. Making a decision, even if it turns out to be suboptimal and you have to adjust later, is actually lighter mentally than carrying the weight, the anxiety, the resource drain of multiple unresolved options.
Yeah.
You commit, you act, and crucially, you free up that mental bandwidth.
It's fascinating how that links up. The psychological engine, the fear and effort, connects directly to the execution strategy, decisiveness, to manage cognitive load. So making decisions quickly isn't just about getting things done faster. It's about protecting your very capacity to put in the effort needed in the first place.
Exactly. It preserves the fuel.
Which leads us to maybe the most provocative part of this whole framework, this high-stakes view of performance and self-management. It leads to a really surprising redefinition of self-love. Because if we're constantly pushing ourselves this hard, driven by this fear, where does kindness fit in? You'd normally expect self-love in this context to mean things like rest, forgiveness, accepting your flaws.
Right, the conventional view.
But instead, this material defines true self-love as holding yourself to an exceptionally high personal standard.
It's a complete flip, isn't it? A profound shift in perspective. The argument is, if you truly value yourself, if you respect your potential, you demand the best from yourself. That means you don't accept mediocre performance from yourself. You don't let yourself just settle for average. You don't let external ease or comfort dictate your internal discipline. The kindness in this view is the profound respect you show to your own potential by demanding it be realized.
Wow.
And the alternative, you're lowering your standards to be nicer or gentler to yourself, is actually framed as a deep act of disrespect. It's like a betrayal of your own capacity. It implies you don't actually believe you can handle the resistance needed for real growth.
Exactly. We tend to confuse high standards with self-punishment. But according to this material, those high standards are the clearest possible sign of self-respect. It's looking at your capacity for excellence and just refusing to negotiate that standard down for temporary comfort. It's maybe the highest expression of agency, taking full responsibility not just for your actions, but for your potential. Okay, this has been quite a journey into the drivers of agency and success. Let's recap the core elements we've pulled out. First, real agency starts by confronting insecurity, and it's fueled by embracing the hard truths of finite time and ultimately irrelevant opinions. Second, personal development isn't passive. It requires treating yourself like a muscle, demanding consistent hard work, often driven by that surprisingly potent engine, the fear of insufficiency. And finally, true self-love isn't about letting yourself off the hook. It's about holding exceptionally high standards, executed through rapid, committed decisions that lighten your cognitive load.
Right. And pulling that thread towards immediate, practical application for you listening, really hold on to that idea. Unmade choices are heavy. The cost of indecision in lost energy, in mental drag, is often far, far greater than the potential cost of making a quick, imperfect choice and then adjusting course. Freedom isn't just about having lots of options. Sometimes real freedom comes from decisively closing options so you can finally move forward.
Which leaves us with one final provocative thought for you to consider. Based on everything we've just unpacked, especially the need for rapid commitment to lighten your load, what's one immediate action or one committed decision you could make right now to free yourself from the heavy burden of an unmade choice you're carrying? That freedom you're looking for. It might just be waiting on the other side of that commitment. Go make the decision.